Welcome to another episode of WTF, the world of Taunton Fox, the world according to Taunton Fox, or the worlds of Taunton Fox, or what the fox is going on in the world, with myself, Laurence Fox, and man with sexy hair, also author, cancelled, swatted, nearly dead, Larry Taunton. How are you, Larry? You live?
I'm
No
doing
one
very
killed you
well.
this
How about
week?
you?
Oh, I'm thrilled. Yes, I'm full of joy.
You know, it dawned on me if we were world according to Taunton Fox, it'd be WATF. And that just, it lacks something.
Alcohol and tobacco and firearms, I like it. What's wrong with that?
WATF?
Well, they did do Waco, and the ATF did Waco, and I'm worried about Waco. So tell me, why don't you? Okay, fine. It's the world of Taunton and Fox, fine, which is what it was meant to be all along. How's the puppy, Larold?
You know, I have to say that I had forgotten, and I've had dogs my whole life, Laza, truly since childhood straight on through. But it's amazing how quickly you forget how puppies are they are fueled by rocket fuel, and it's just never ending. It is exhausting, but we're getting through. We're almost potty trained with Scout, and now we're working on not chewing everything. Just as we were starting, I was sitting outside on the steps with Scout and with Ranger, and in the course of, I don't know, 5 minutes, she ate several leaves, threw them up. She ate several sticks. She ate some plastic. She ate a stick. You name it. She's absolutely eating everything. But everything's going well. How about you?
I'm just looking forward to seeing that look on your face when she actually eats some of the actual stairs or the actual
She's
railings.
tried. She has absolutely tried.
It's that look on your face when the boathouse got broken, and
Yes.
I saw from a few hundred yards away, I saw this face of a man saying, "I'm not going to get angry. I'm not angry about this. I'm not going to get angry. I'm going to stay calm. I'm going to tell my son that this problem needs to be rectified, and I don't want to discuss it ever again." But unfortunately, with a dog, you can't do that. What are your thoughts on dog discipline?
Of course, like children. No, I'm very much a believer in corporal punishment, but it's reserved for particular things. It's reserved with children. We always reserved it for acts of defiance. So you didn't just spank a child for anything, but acts of defiance were worthy of that kind of punishment. I also think taking something like with a puppy, taking a rolled up newspaper, just a whack on the nose, like, no, it's not acceptable to jump on everybody, and you have to be like that, particularly with German Shepherds. It's really cute when she's a 15 pounder, but she's on her way to being a 75, 80, 90 pound dog. And, I'm thinking Lizzie probably won't like, her jumping, where her paws are right here, on Lizzie's shoulders. Might not be very pleasant. So I'm trying to take care of that before you come.
Well, Lizzie is crazy dog lady, so she wouldn't mind that at all. She's as I left the house and came in here, there was just her under a pile of dogs, which is the way it is.
It's different when they're 80, 90, 100 pounds.
Well, Blaze is heavy. Blaze is a big dog.
Is that right?
Yeah, the Labrador is big.
Okay.
He's not as big as Ranger, but he's not far off. So puppy training, yes. Ours are just in the last couple of weeks have just turned one, our puppies, and on the weekend my dad came and I'd gone and bought a family tradition of ours is to do the summer plants in pots.
I'm sorry, to do what?
Summer plants in pots. So we go and, you buy whatever, geraniums, camellias and various other things. And you put them in pots around, the entrance to the house. And they grow and you have this beautiful flowers all summer. We've done it as a family. My dad did it and I sort of followed on the tradition. So we spent the weekend doing it. But one of the problems with this is that the puppies, or non-puppies now, on their way out of the front door to go to the bathroom, think that, why wouldn't I eat some of that plant? And so I also apply corporal punishment, but it's usually in the form of a foot to the side, back, whichever part of the dog I can reach, as I kick it past the plant that it wants to eat. And then, in other exciting news, 3 days ago, so maybe one of our listeners will be able to tell me what this is. 3 days ago, my left foot started dragging along the ground. I couldn't lift it up properly and carry it forward. Just happened randomly out of the blue. Same as when my arm went numb and I had to have a neck operation. So I'm hoping I don't have something serious wrong with me. And then 2 days ago, when I was going, my foot doesn't work properly, I smashed it into some obstacle that I was walking past, like a rock or something. So I think I've broken a metatarsal in my foot as well. So I'm having a great time, and I'm in court on Friday. So I'm having it's difficult to describe the gratitude that I have at the moment for life.
Well, and you didn't even mention what you told me privately is the struggles with ED.
Oh yes, my erectile dysfunction is of course a great upset to everyone in the family. But we have a large prayer group praying to that he will rise again, and that will be fine. So thanks for.
Does your prayer group put their hands on you?
They do, and the prayer group only costs $100 an hour. So. And they can be picked up from almost any street corner.
Well, and not to make too much light of your, your injury, your ailment. That sounds like something that could potentially be serious. Have you had it looked at?
No, I'm applying the usual Fox routine regime to being ill, which is to ignore it, and then if it doesn't go away, ignore it again, and then complain. And then if it really doesn't go away, go and see a doctor. So I think we're about stage 2. Stage 3 will be seeing a doctor when I have some time to do so. So we'll see. Hopefully it's immediately, because I'm a catastrophizer, I was straight to well, that's the terminal brain tumor you've been waiting for. So that's where I went straight away. But I'm like many things at the moment. I'm trying to free up the space in my mind that I use to be anxious and use it to be lazy instead.
Well, I want to circle back around to what you were saying about your court cases, and maybe you can tell us something about that. But before we dig into that, which is serious and heavy, I want to mention one other little trivial thing. I don't know if you saw my tweet, but Lori and I watched the last couple of nights. We watched Cleopatra, last week, the 1963 version with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton and Rex Harrison. And I was blown away by the grandeur of it. I was saying to Lori, that's not CGI of 25,000 people. That's 25,000 people. But then we watched last night, the last 2 nights, because it's quite long. We watched Lawrence of Arabia. And when it was over, I told Lori, this is I think it's like 1961, 62. It's Peter O'Toole. And I told Lori when it was over, I said, Laza would have been good in that role. I mean, I know you weren't alive at the time, so it wasn't offered to you. But if there's ever a reboot, you would be good in the role. I'm absolutely convinced of it because of all my extensive Hollywood background experience. I'm just absolutely certain you'd be good in that role.
Well, Lizzie is reading Erotic Vagrants, or Erotic Vagrancy. I think it's Erotic Vagrants, which is the book which is the Pope at the time described Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor as erotic vagrants. And it is, the book is sort of universally, everyone I've met has recommended me this book.
I've never heard of it.
so she is reading that. So feel free, everyone, to go and read that. And the reboot of Lawrence of Arabia will be, as you know, it'll be similar to whenever people talk about Jesus Christ and they put up a picture of of someone who looks a bit like Gad Sad, and they say, you do know that Jesus was like, he definitely was anything other than white. So they'll say that Lawrence was he'll end up being a they them non-binary, but actually maybe that the days of filmmaking of non-binary they thems are coming to an end. It might be quite nice to see, actually. But if one day they do welcome me back into show business, which I'm not sure they ever will, I would be very happy to stand in front of a green screen with 25,000 computer-generated Arabs.
Well, listen, I truly, all joking aside, I think you could pull that off, and in part because I could see you, like, I know nothing. You've talked about how the further you get from a real detective, you're playing someone who played a detective, who played a detective, who played a detective. So in knowing nothing about Laurence himself, like what he was actually like, I can picture you playing Peter O'Toole's version, of him, and even kind of sort of looking a bit like Peter O'Toole, in tall and lean and blonde headed, and anyway. But speaking of what you're just saying about transgenders and such, I don't know if you saw this tweet of mine, but I think this is hilarious. Let me show you this photo right here.
Is that a tranny?
No. This is one of the South African refugees that Trump.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And allowed 50 white South Africans. What is happening in South Africa to white farmers is horrific. But I couldn't help but just laugh out loud, and I thought, the quality of refugee has increased incredibly under Donald Trump.
I tell you what, I hate to say it, but I may need Donald's help to get out as well. It's true. And what was so interesting about the South African refugees is I really feel for the speed at which the refugees that flee to Europe must do it, because they don't have time to bring their children or their wives. They just come with themselves, just young men, like an army every day.
Military age
young men. So at least they've these guys have had the time to bring their wives and children with them, which is really good. Unlike Britain,
only 50 of them, but the left is going nuts over that. Now let's come to your court cases. What are you allowed to tell us?
Well, you know what? I was speaking to my lawyers yesterday, and I thought, and I had a really nice conversation with my lawyers. I was like, "What am I allowed to say?" And he said, "I think it's better that you don't tell us what you're going to say. Don't try not to say anything that will prejudice the case, but it's always better to ask forgiveness than permission." And I thought, okay. So on this Friday, I am in court for. Let me just find out. Let me just read it out so I get it exactly right. I am in court. So 20 months ago, I started saying that I'll give a bit of background first, and then I'll tell you what I'm charged with. So 20 months ago, the little midget dictator, Britain-hating leftist Sadiq Khan, who runs London, runs London, has destroyed the finest city in Europe. He decided that he was going to install some very high-end China-style surveillance cameras across the capital under the guise of keeping congestion down and charging everybody £14.50 a day extra on top of their day in a cost of living crisis to do it. I objected to this because the technology in the camera, a lot of the technology in the camera is from China. On one end of the conspiracy level scale, people say they're a weapon. And on the simple end of the scale, this is just absolute facial recognition surveillance system across London. I objected to this because I object to the surveillance state. And I made this pretty clear. And there was a group in London called the Blade Runners, who were at the time in the process of removing these pieces of technological fly tipping, as far as I'm concerned. And I expressed sympathy with them. And therefore, 20 months later, after they've charged me with my whatever I'm charged with in the other case, I'm now charged with, between the 12th of the 9th and the 4th of the 10th, did acts, namely posted several messages on social media, formerly known as Twitter, which was capable of encouraging the commission of an either-way offence, namely encouraging damages of ULEZ cameras and threatening to cause or destroy criminal damage to ULEZ cameras within the London boroughs, and it's environ. So basically, something I said was capable of possibly making someone do something else to an inanimate object that wasn't there 5 minutes ago. I just think it's completely politically motivated attack on me. I think it's because they know that their other case is a dead duck. So they want to try this case, and then I think they're going to throw another case at me, and another case at me, and another case at me, and another case at me. And it's designed to empty my bank account. It's designed to destroy, as you've said last week, this thing about the unheroic character assassination of somebody, the unheroic, indefensible attack. And I will go, and actually this time on Friday, I'm going to go and give a speech. So last time I go through the press, and they stick up some microphones. They're all very generous like that, the press. And they put up some microphones. And I'd be interested to see if they put up some microphones, because I will go and I will stand outside and I will give a proper speech about the state of things in this country. And there's an argument to say that I get myself into these problems, which is true. And I will take responsibility for that. But I do not think okay, let me just sort of sidetrack to prove my point. There's a guy called Chris Packham in the UK. He was a very famous wildlife guy on TV. He was a slightly strange, autistic type chap. And he was very good at what he did. And he was very pro, wildlife and all of that sort of stuff. And he did a big documentary, and he said exactly the same thing as I said. But he just said it because it was ethically sound to preserve the planet. And he said it to a huge, huge audience on national mainstream TV, and he was greeted with a round of applause. But I say the same thing against authoritarian surveillance states, and I am charged. And I face, it depends on what the Crown Prosecution Service. So in Britain, I suppose the American equivalent would be a public prosecutor's office. And in the films, American films, they're always like, God darn it, you're public prosecutor. You could be a great defense attorney, whatever, But the public prosecutor's office was always, in American films, seems to be filled with like really smart, ideologically driven people. Whereas the Crown Prosecution Service in England is full of people who couldn't get a job in a real lawyer's office. So it's currently run by 4 very leftist lesbians, and they just want me gone. They want me in jail. They're angry because I don't, I'm not LGBTQIA plus ally, and I don't, apologize for my white privilege and stuff. So they're just going to use whatever they can do to attack me. And the problem is, these tweets from 20 months ago, where I'm saying it's got to go, the surveillance state is terrible, and it does have to go, and it is terrible, it should go, are nothing compared to some of the stuff I've tweeted since. So, I mean, there'll just be an entire team, and what I think is, I'm finally pleased that I'm getting some value for my taxpayer money, because I must have paid over the years many millions of pounds in taxes in this country, and I've never asked for anything back. Never. I think I've been to A&E once. So I think I've probably had about, 500 quid back from the state, having given them several millions. Now, in these cases, they're going to go to the High Court. They're going to be put in front of a jury. This is going to cost so much public money. But the good thing is they're going after me, and murderers are going to walk free. So it's good. It's nice to live in communist Britain. It's inspiring.
having read an essay that you sent to me, it raised some interesting questions for me, and one of them is this: I don't think I've ever asked you this before, and I think it would be of interest to our audience. You were in some really major. I don't know how you rank them, the terminology used, but you know, grade A films, or whatever, top tier, well known, in that category that's being nominated for Academy Awards and this kind of stuff. And then you were quite abruptly canceled. What happened?
I composed a tweet which I didn't send because it had some anger in it. I mean, I'm learning. So I did compose a tweet, and it said something along the lines of, I used to get phoned up by my friends to congratulate me on a film job or something. And now I get phoned up by my friends to ask me why I'm in. Okay, this is what I said. Friends used to phone me up and congratulate me on getting an acting job. Now they phone me up and ask me what I'm in court for this week. The only thing that has changed the only thing which has changed since that time and now is that I started speaking the truth. I'm in the High Court every Friday this month, then the High Court after that. Last time I turned to the public gallery, I saw Mohammed Akanji, who defended Shamima Begum, who was, Mohammed Akanji is an Islamist legal guy. What he's got to do with this case, I have no idea. Last time I turned to the public gallery and I saw Mohammed Akanji and an entire team of fawning terrorist supporting cretins loitering there. What business this pernicious little man has to do with me is anybody's guess. I wonder how much it will cost the taxpayer for the midget dictator Sadiq Khan to try and shut me up. Bad news, you corrupt little mafia boss. I'm never going to be quiet about you and your corrupt little schemes. There are rapists and murderers walking London streets, but you want me in prison because your Stasi political Metropolitan Police Force are too greasy, obese and cowardly to go and solve an actual crime. I want my country back. I didn't send it because I thought, let's stay light. So, I don't know if that answers your question at all. What was your question?
Why were you canceled? You answered there vaguely by saying I was the truth, but can you? What specific truth do you think led to your cancellation?
I was cancelled for saying that Britain was not I said that Britain was a warm, welcoming, and non-racist country. And it's on Question Time in 2020. Anyone can see it. It's a very uncontroversial view. But I think because it came from me, because it came from someone from the arts, the punishment had to be very, very severe. And then since that time, either aided by myself or certainly aided by myself, I have to take responsibility for some of that. It has got steadily worse because I refuse to apologise and back down. Because I don't believe our country, and I know it to be true because it's all backed up by all of the data, and you can see it just by walking around, is that Britain is not a racist country. If anything, Britain is a very over-tolerant country to other ideologies, and much to its detriment, in my view. But I've kind of started. I've continued to hammer this. What's it called? Whack-a-mole's problem. Every time one of these ways of attacking our culture, our heritage, and our traditions, and the greatness of our country, given that both of my grandfathers fought and one of them was very severely wounded fighting for this country, I've persisted on putting Britain first and defending her against the globalist agenda. And for the last 5 years, I've been in constant litigation, and I'm now in constant civil litigation for 5 years, criminal litigation now, and I don't think they're going to stop until I'm locked up and then killed in prison. That's what I think they'll want to do to me.
Next question that was raised for me in reading your essay is, what motivated you? Can you remember a specific news item or thing that motivated you to become what you are, which is a public figure who was offering commentary on news of the day, things, controversial events. You became like me. I mean, you became a figure who went from acting, from the arts, to saying, no, I've had enough. You listened to Twisted Sister and you came away and you said, I'm not going to take it anymore. And he began speaking out. Can you remember what event that was?
Brett Kavanaugh hearings. It was the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. And I was on a film set filming. I was playing Lord Palmerston in Victoria, and there were two girls sat outside, and they were talking about Believe All Women. And anyone who knows anything about my life and, the situations...
Excuse me?
Bless you. Anyone who knows that the last thing I think you should ever do is believe anyone randomly, woman, man, whatever it is. So it was listening to these two girls saying, we've got to believe Christine Blasey Ford. And I was like, have you listened to this woman speak? She can't even remember anything. She's literally making it up. And this man is having his whole life and reputation destroyed. And all he's trying to do is serve his country. That's all he's trying to do. He's trying to put himself in it. And I thought, at that moment, I thought, you know what? Some things are more important than being rich on a film set somewhere. And I was quite comfortable in my career at that point because I was doing well. As I said, I was doing well anyway, but I was doing even better. But I just thought, I'm not going to pretend. So a lot of the actors you work with, they will have a private opinion and a public one. And their private opinion often is quite similar to, mine. A lot of actors, I could, cancel a load of actors if I wanted to by saying things that they've said to me, but I wouldn't.
Do it. Do it.
No, I'll do it in my book. But they are, I couldn't reconcile there's something about, and I'd be interested to know what you think about this because it's quite a dense topic and it's difficult to understand, but there's something about lying, one of the antidotes to lying is to not try and have a public and a private face. But I know that a public and a private face are two important things. You were talking about it, vulnerability and these sorts of things, and openness. But my defense against being the worst excesses of my vices of lying, of being a fallen, vile human being, are to say, well, I'm just going to say it straight up so that I don't have to get questioned by somebody else at some point and find out that I've said something different to them than I've said to them. So I just think that my way of processing it was say, I don't want to live a lie anymore, where I don't say anything to girls that say believe all women or young black actresses who say that everyone is racist towards them when they're not. So I was just like, I'll just be consistent in my message. And the consistency of the message actually, strangely, is the thing that the leftists hate so much because they rely on lies. In fact, they think that lies are wonderful. So, and the bigger the lie, the better for them. So it was that really that got me in the end. But I do think that at some point there will be some, I don't think I'll ever get a pat on the back for it, but I think at some point there will be some vindication somewhere that, if someone writes a book about this period of what was going on in Britain in a few decades' time, that I may get an honourable mention in a chapter somewhere.
Well, in part, that's why we do what we do, right? I mean, I want it, whatever happens, whatever the outcome of this era, if America is burned down to the ground, I want on my tombstone, I want my children, my grandchildren, I want to stand before my God with a clear conscience, and for it to say he poured out himself, in an effort to prevent all of these evil things from happening. He didn't just go along. He refused to say Sieg Heil. He refused to wear the Nazi armband. He refused to join the communist or Nazi parties. So I'm with you in that, and I think that's a big part why we're friends. I would find it very hard. It's interesting, Laza, and I maybe don't have. I'd have to think about this to know whether or not I actually have a real justification for this. But there's an awful lot of there are many vices that I can tolerate in a man. Cowardice is not one of them. I maybe that's just a product of the way that I was raised.
It's the first one you should not tolerate. It's above all other things, because if a man has any real practical role in this world, it's to protect. That's it. If we are just cavemen with flint axes, the job of the male of the species is to protect, and therefore cowards usually are bred down in the species, aren't they? They're bred down, and we rightly, for entire epochs of life, we looked at cowards in an appropriate way. Then there was a useful and quite a good reimagining of the state of cowardice in terms of things like the four feathers. That idea of the conscientious objection to something, and then the reclamation of heroism and all of that. I find that really fascinating. And shell shock, I think, is appalling that men were shot for shell shock. But that's not cowardice to me. Genuine cowardice is like, it's first degree cowardice. It's premeditated, it's planned, and it's self-serving. And I think it should be treated with the derision it deserves. I agree with you.
Well, I think really it doesn't have to do with the way I'm hearing what you were saying earlier is less about consistency, as it is about reacting to what you perceive to be cowardice. Maybe you haven't thought about it this way consciously, but when you're talking about those actors, writers, producers, directors, whatever, who offer one opinion privately and a completely different one publicly, I think partially what you're reacting to there is a sense of cowardice, is that here I am, out in the public saying something about, lopping off the genitals of little boys. And I know that guy over there agrees with me, but publicly he's saying something very different. That would anger me. I would feel like that's cowardice. But I think there's a difference between that and what we were talking about privately, about vulnerability. And part of my model is that in Scripture, it's quite fascinating that Jesus says he's much more guarded publicly than he is privately, and so much so that even the disciples say to him, "Why do you say these things publicly, but you what you're telling us right here, you don't?" And he says, "Because it's not always given for them to know." And so he was much more open in a private context than he was in a public one. So I don't see that as cowardice. I don't see that as inconsistent. I see that as wisdom. But I am with you that there are people, and I've been through this in very real instances in my own life, where there are people who will voice their support for me privately, and where I'm looking for them to say something publicly and they don't want to, because they don't want to put their neck out. And I suspect some of the people who would say to you, "Hey, Laurence, what are you in court for now?" are some of those kinds of people. They're saying to their wives, to their girlfriends at their dinner parties, I agree with what he's saying, but he shouldn't do it that way. I mean, he's getting what he deserves, because he's out there, saying these things. I got that after the swatting incident in my home, that there were people who are like, "Well, I mean, you go out there and say things like that, that's what's going to happen." And my feeling is, well, it's because you're a coward. You need to be saying these things too. And if more people were, then we wouldn't be facing the kinds of cultural circumstances that we're facing right now. And maybe you're okay knuckling under. I'm not.
Well, it also, you would never, it's like that. You'd never walk into a hospital if one of your friend's children had been run over and killed and gone, "Well, that's what you get for going on the street." it's so different that one has to have a level of consistency to one's thinking, and that is, your actions. Surely, you'll help me with this, but surely you're responsible for your own actions. You're not responsible for other people's actions. So if someone wants to swat you, that's not because of what you said. That's because somebody went out to try and have you killed. That is the person who I have the problem with. I don't know whether you were sat at home recording Deutschland über alles and saying, we need to start up the Fourth Reich. I would defend your right to say whatever the hell you wanted to say. You still don't deserve to be murdered for it. And this is the difficulty with cancel culture, and it's the difficulty I have with my sons and with my friends and my family. Sometimes is it's okay to really dislike what somebody thinks while still really loving them. And I think so few people can get past that thing, that we've entered this world of this toxic mix of you are what you say. It's like, no, you are, as a person, you are wonderfully unique, and you may think, I think a whole lot of things that people think is stupid, but it doesn't make me or them any less loved by God, or any less, Jesus didn't die just for good opinions, did he? He died for all of our badnesses too. And I find that very difficult with certain people, because I want to say, I have a major problem with Islam practiced as it is directed by the Quran. I have a huge problem with it, but I don't have a problem with you as a Muslim. We can sit and talk all day. I have no problem. And I love you as much as I love anyone. Your ideology, I loathe. But you, I love. And it's like, how hard is that to break into someone's mind? And am I just being sort of kind of clever and devious, or am I telling the truth? I ask myself this all the time. I think I'm telling the truth.
Well, we certainly can make a distinction, between the individual and the ideology. I've thought that many times about some of the people, that I've debated, that, I don't hate this person because they're a militant atheist or a radical Islamist. I hate the ideology, that they stand for, and that's that we can separate those things out. Sometimes it's very hard to separate them out, because the ideology comes to sock puppet, the individual to such a degree, to possess them, in Dostoevsky's words, where you can't really separate, one from the other. And I think that's certainly isn't the case of the level of the social engineers, the Starmers and the Bidens and the Pelosi's and the Schumers and the Soroses and on and on and on. I'm pretty close to hating those people. I like to think that as a Christian, I restrain myself from going straight off of that cliff, but those people have wrought such evil on the world, on so many people, the annihilation of the unborn, the mutilation of children, open borders, which has led to so much grief, so much heartache, so much pain, so much evil, that I hold those people accountable in a way that maybe I don't the average person on the street, who hasn't really thought through carefully what it is that they say that they believe. I mean, for instance, you take something like Islam. The average Muslim, even in Islamic states, they're generally fairly moderate and haven't read the Quran and don't want to read it. They're Muslim in a vague cultural sense. But what we're talking about sometimes can reach a very different level.
Yeah, it's I had a very positive email. It's interesting. There's something also about, if you're going to be wrong on your way to being right. Whatever it is, don't allow somebody else to tell you that you're wrong, even though how do I express this? Anyway, I invited some people to our wedding, and there is a Muslim element to this. And they decided that they were going to say, they agreed to come to the wedding, they accepted the wedding, and then they said, no, we're not going to come to the wedding. And then I got an email from them today saying we are coming to the wedding. And there was a long explanation as to why they feel very offended about my views about Islam and stuff like that. And I will deal with those litigate those at the pace and speed that they need to be litigated. But they mentioned in their email, they said, it's interesting that people are often most wrong before they're right. And it was a sort of accusation to me. It was like, you're going to get past this and you're going to think that Islam is wonderful by the end of it. And I was like, no, I'm really not. But I'm very grateful that you put yourself in. So I looked at it from such a different position. I looked at it and said, isn't it great that they finally put themselves in our shoes to say that we really value you and we want you at our wedding. And you have decided not to use it as the weapon to attack us with. But at the same time, you maintain the middle sentence, which is you're on the way to being right. And first of all, you have to be wrong. And I thought, if anyone was going to chastise you and do, and score a point in some way, that's the way to do it, is to maintain a level of pride with your middle sentence that keeps the whole show on the road. So now, I have more people that I love coming to our wedding. And the final sentence was, and of course we come with love, with unconditional love and no conditions, So I thought that was, it was also written in a slightly different font. So it was obviously added at the end.
Did you say, thank you, and please leave the suicide vest at home?
I'm going to write back a message not massively different from what I've just said to you, which is that, and also the word heritage was used in the email about Islamic heritage. And I'm going to say I have no problem with your heritage. I have a problem with the ideology that is not subscribed to by anyone in your family, because you couldn't tell whether any one of them was a Muslim if your life depended on it. That none of them are practicing Muslims. They're all cultural Muslims, as you quite rightly point out. They love a bit of Pinot Grigio and spending time at the casino. So it's like, it's all, the whole thing is haram. The Muslims would hate them too.
It's funny you mentioned that. In Cairo, at the hotel that I was staying at in Cairo before, I had the whole run-in with the secret police. There was a casino in the hotel. And I decided one day, because I didn't even know it was there, a hotel employee made reference to it, and I kept noticing these people coming and going and sort of disappearing down a hallway. And I thought it must be a ballroom or something. And I said, no, there's a casino. So I went down there to check out the casino. And it was interesting because they required my ID before I was even allowed to go in. Zachary was with me. So we decided to, go and investigate this. And they had a sign that said, no Egyptian nationals are allowed into the casino. And I asked a woman who was checking our IDs, why is that? And the answer was essentially this. So it was much better stated than I'm going to say, and it's much more clever. But it was essentially saying, we don't allow gambling, but we're fine with foreigners corrupting themselves and taking their money.
Which, if we had, so just take that one cultural value and apply it to the West. So say we're absolutely fine with you being a Muslim, but we're just not going to have any mosques. It's the same. It's in Middle Eastern countries. You're struggling to find a church in Saudi Arabia, I would imagine. so that sort of cultural muscularity, and it's not even religious. It just goes, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. You guys go and pervert and destroy your souls. That's fine, but we don't do that. And it's a way of expressing an identity. The thing that we're taught in the West all the time is that everything we do has been terrible and wrong and dreadful and evil. And it's like, no, everything we've done is really wonderful in the main. And I just wish people were a bit. Well, we've got an American Pope.
Yeah, well, we'll see whether or not that's very good. But to me, the equivalent would be in the West of saying we have like a room here in the hotel that's for jihadists only. And you guys can go in there and you can blow each other up, and you can, you can there are no British nationals are allowed, no Americans, but you guys are allowed to go in there. We have some cars in there. You pay a little extra. You can put some dynamite in it and run it into other guys.
I haven't laughed like that in a while.
It's a safe space for jihadists. No American nationals are allowed.
I just love it. And then I just can, oh God, I haven't laughed like that in a long time. It's exactly like that.
You guys can go in there and each other. All that.
Out here, the age of consent is 16, but in there, it's, eat a hard out, chum.
You guys go in there and you guys have some fun, and it's going to cost you X amount, go in there and do that. I just thought it was funny that here you had an island of something that is deemed perverse and illegal in Egypt. Egypt isn't an Islamic state. It is moderately secular in a Muslim majority country, which is different than Islamic State. But they have a strong view, of gambling. But they say, look, Westerners, you guys come in here and do whatever you want and blow all your money and engage in this. What happens is the Egyptians leave, and they go, when they're allowed, to places like Romania, Eastern Europe and so forth, where they spend all their money in casinos and on Eastern European prostitutes.
Yeah, and red rooms and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So there's the other thing about the human condition which is so wonderful about the idea of fallenness and evil, is that, if you try and temper even the most basic of vices like gambling, and if you try and make that illegal, those that are kind of a country's going to turn around and go, well, either our hotel goes down, because no one's going to want to come. The big spenders who want to come to this hotel want a casino, or the local million and billionaires restrict their most depraved and basest desires, and they meet them out on young Romanian girls, and that's what's happened. Literally what happened in Britain. And it's the biggest national scandal ever, and everyone's anyone in politics is pretending it never happened, and it's such a while being called racist for mentioning it, it's unbelievable. I don't know how long that cognitive dissonance can maintain, where people turn around and go, you're locking people up for X, Y, and Z, but you're letting rapists and pedophiles walk free. And, we've seen it in America with this horrible case, and I feel dreadful that I can't remember the young man's name, but he was stabbed in the heart.
Ah, yes. Terrible.
He was stabbed in the heart, and his murderer
has a GoFundMe.
It has in a house, and he's going to be allowed to graduate, the murderer. I read today, and you think to yourself, this is where any form of racism, because this is sort of what they would call kind of reparative justice or disparate impact or whatever they would call it, is so vile for the whole of society, because this guy is going to be, instead of having to come to terms with what he's done, I'm assuming he's a human being. He is a human being. Instead of having to come to terms with the fact that he took another man's life, he's going to be given by a bunch of guilty white saviors an excuse as to why he plunged a knife into the heart of an innocent human being. And the excuse is going to be because the country he lives in is systemically racist. So his life, the reason why it's so bad is his life is over. He is never going to be able to sit down and go, I committed an act of extreme evil for which I need to repent and I can be forgiven. Instead, he's going to spend his life on probably quite a short jail term for second-degree murder or manslaughter, or whatever you call it, second or third degree, as you call it in America, going, it's because I'm black, I killed this guy. Because, it's because I'm black. It was really hard for me. I had to kill him because I'm black. And it's like, it's no good for anyone. The poor kid who was murdered, his family is destroyed. The father, actually, I feel really, really, it's the first time I've ever thought forgiveness is a mistake in some of these ways. The father came out straight away and forgave this family. He forgave that guy for what he did. And what they did with that forgiveness was they twisted it, they turned it, they wrenched it, they gutted it, and they used it to destroy and kill his family again. And I just find it so... That's why I do what I do. I can't sleep at night thinking that stuff happens. I can't stay quiet.
I can't help but think there's a book in there somewhere, but I don't know. That's a separate topic. Well, a takeaway from last week's show was middle sentence. I think middle sentence is terrific. We've coined that term, middle sentence, and we need to use it regularly. If you don't know what we're talking about, go back and watch the previous episode. I think the takeaway will be from this show that we need to create jihadi spaces. And I think, Laza, we could franchise it. We can franchise it. We can sell
you know what? Half of the reason why I'm laughing is because people would do it. They would go, it's very inclusive. It's like, listen, what we've done is we've really gone out there, and the walls are much stronger. So you're not going to, all you need to do is go in there with whoever you want to jihad, and click, and it's all over, and it's going to be lovely, and we'll soundproof it so children don't get frightened, and we'll call it a multi-faith explosion room.
I think it would work. I think
in British airports they have this
I've
thing.
seen them.
Multi-faith prayer room.
So ridiculous.
But have you seen what the multi-faith is? It's a guy kneeling on a mat with his head on the ground.
Yeah, of course.
Of course it is. It's like Ya Allah Akbar. I might become a Muslim and I'd go in. Have you seen that video on social media of that? I don't know. I don't even know the context of it. But it's a bodyguard, and he just he's stood there in a press conference, and he just takes out 3 grenades and he lobs them on the ground. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't. Is this real, or is it an ad or something?
It's real. I think it might be Chechen or something like that. It was just like it was basically what we're describing, except that the people that were also in the multi-faith jihadi room didn't know that was what was going to happen. But as long as we put a very good, strong disclaimer on the door, and we say, look, what goes on inside here, that's
they sign a waiver. People have to sign a waiver. But I think
the management are not responsible.
Are not responsible. It's like that sign we see here in the U.S. that I mock all the time, that you see a gravel truck, going down the highway, and it says not responsible for broken windshields. Well, of course you are. It's like Democrats. I feel like Democrats just go through life with signage, like that. I'm not responsible for anything I do. But I think we put up signage like that. We get people to sign a waiver. We have the bigger parks that could be somewhere out west, a desert, kind of area, where
if someone wanted to do it in the open air, which is inclusive as well, because some people
you can pay extra, and get the suicide bomber car package where you pay for the car that you're going to blow up. You could pay for the belt. We supply the belts with the dead man switch. We provide scimitars. Print scimitars. I think we could franchise this. I think we'd be extremely successful.
I think you're worryingly describing a lot of the Middle East.
Yeah, well, there we go. And we could, like, for people who have a lot of money, we could give them what shall we say, the Allah package. And the Allah package involves the use of an airplane that you can fly into something that we supply. But that's an expensive package because we lose the airplane. It can't be reused again.
Well, hang on. Let's think about this. I think the Fire of Allah package would be the Fire of Allah package. I still think we need to be inclusive, so we need to make it affordable. So it's a Cessna. All right, it's a Cessna that's going to get scrapped. Or we go to the US military and we say, look, guys, you've got graveyards full of airplanes. We're starting up a new company called the Eyes of Allah, and and the Fire of Allah package is our greatest package. And we want to give someone the cockpit experience of flying into a bunch of infidels. But where are we going
to maybe donate, some larger planes like they just did to President Trump?
Yeah, but where are we going to get the infidels for the Eyes of Allah package? I mean, I think I'm going to get charged for this conversation.
I think that if we advertise it, if we build it, they will come.
I do.
They will come. They will come from all over the world. They will come to, and we could also have, we could provide on the front end, because our fine print would state that we have doubts about their understanding of the So we could say that we supply the 70 versions on the front end.
I mean, these packages are really good because also, this is very good because you should get the 72 virgins up front, I think. I think it's really unfair. So this is what we're in the process of doing is starting a new religion. Oh my God, we're going to be followed by billions across the world. So you get the 72 virgins, not if you do the...
This is a very expensive package we're talking here, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about many hundreds of thousands of dollars for the Eyes of Allah package. But for let's talk about the Jihadi Weekend Saver package. That is 2 nights in a terrorist cell house for the terrorist cell experience in, I don't know, somewhere in East London, where you get to hang out with some terrorists. We'll get you with some actual terrorists. You can wave some scimitars around. We'll get you an infidel woman to defile, and then you can go into a quiet room in the back and blick, boom. I mean, I think that's for 2,000 quid. I really think that's good value for money.
We'd have to have a good cleanup crew, though. There would be a lot of labor involved after. It's more than changing the sheets.
We can use migrant labor. Apparently, they do the jobs that the indigenous people don't like doing. I mean, this podcast could go on for decades now.
This could work.
Is it a new book of the Quran that we're just writing?
I think it's at least another.
It's a hadith.
It's another. There we go. It's a saying, and it's a saying. And since most of them don't read it anyway, they won't know the reality. It's like another. It's what do Mormons say? It's like another book of Jesus Christ, or something like that. So we could say it's another book of Allah, another saying of Allah. But I frankly think that this has massive potential. It would attract lots of people. The beauty of it is I think it would also attract that very left wing element that wants to be very inclusive and that thinks all of this is culturally acceptable because it's not Western or Christian culture. So they would embrace it. They would think this is really wonderful and we shouldn't condemn any of it because this is really who we are. And
well, hang on, I've got a money saving idea. You do the climate change package at the same time as the Tic Tac Boom, Bing Bang Boom package. So the climate change doomsday cultist, sun monster worshipper, gets to really feel like what instant climate change feels like.
Is that a suntanning bed?
Not really, but he's going to get awful hot really, really quickly. So the climate change pact, oh man, I'm going to do a business plan. I feel that you and I are about to be up there with someone like Soros money-wise.
Well, and frankly, I think that we can get some USAID funding.
Yes.
Because this is a culturally affirming, multicultural affirming endeavor. I mean, who's to condemn us for what we're doing? We are celebrating diversity. I think it'd be wonderful.
But the abortion package, think about the abortion package. I mean, the abortion package combined with the climate change package, I mean, that's 3 birds, 1 stone, 1 bomb. Sorry. That's 3 birds, 1 boom. 3 birds, 1 boom.
Well, and you could throw in there, and of course, we can really, this is going to start sounding like Lord of the Flies if we keep going. But you could also have like the rainbow package. And, that's where, again, there's the jihadi space where they can go in there and they can, suicide bomb each other. But then there's the rainbow package in where, listen, what happens at these parks stays in these parks, and they can go in there and, they just have to sign the waiver. But if you guys want to go in there and fist each other, do whatever it is that you people do, you're allowed to go in that space and you're allowed to go in there and do it. You just have to sign the waiver.
This was meant to be like serious show where we talked about serious things, but I should
say to people that this is what our conversations are actually like when we're not on camera.
Okay, well, we now have committed to the camera. I need to get to a serious point. Larry's got some things, but look, in England, everyone walks around with these LGBTQ plus lanyards that they put their work thing on, and they go,
I like it.
Yeah, so now we have a Union Jack one at the culture stores. Go to the culture stores and get one. And then we also have a free speech one. I love free speech.
What does it say? It just says, I love free speech.
I love free speech. So I think it's good. Lanyards are the key. And we're about to do a load of hats and caps. Unfortunately, not in time for my court appearance on Friday. But before I commit, I think I've probably committed about 500 more crimes in this one conversation. I'm going to go and cook food, and I'm going to love you and leave you. But you're a very bad man. Your heart is full of sin, and your sense of humor is evil and dark.
Well, this has been... Yes. I mean, what can I say?
I know. It's so good. I'm so looking forward to this one. My dad goes, I see you and I listen to you and Larry, and I'm like, I'm so looking forward to calling him next week and going, how are you, Dad? And he's like, we need to have a word.
He's going to be very disappointed in me and leading you astray on this.
No, you've got to laugh, man. You've got to laugh. If you don't laugh, you can't do anything. So thank you for making me laugh. I really, really appreciate it. I have not laughed like that in a very, very long time.
Well, we need it, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you standing for truth. I appreciate your courage and speaking out. And I just want to say to people as we finish this episode of WTF that you're being persecuted. I mean, that's the reality of what is happening here. You've not violated any. How shall I put it? Maybe you have violated some British law, but you've not violated any moral law. Maybe we did in the course of this particular episode of WTF, but in terms of the prosecution attempts against you, these are immoral acts. These are immoral people who are simply trying to shut you down, and that's what this is about. So I'd ask people to pray for Laurence, pray for him, and I'm excited about your pending wedding. I'm really excited to be there.
I can't wait for you to be there, and I really hope I'm not in prison. The problem is, this is how much I don't trust the system. If I went in on Friday and allowed a magistrate to deal with it, that magistrate could put me in prison that day for a year. More than a year, 2 years, that day. So you have, and I'm not treated like other people are treated in this country. I'm just not. I'm treated. It's not possible to libel me. It's not possible to. I'm not a citizen of Great Britain in any meaningful sense of the word. So one just has to kind of fight and hope that once you put it in front of 12 of your peers, that they will come to the right decision and you will accept it. But I tell you what, when it was really stressing me out and I went to bed and I was given a huge amount of grace by God, who said to me, there was nothing that will harm you that I can't protect you from. Nothing. And that was it, just very gentle. And I just thought, oh, I can now go to sleep. So that was good. So I'm okay. I'll be okay. But you're right. They are bastards and they are persecuting me. I love you.
Take us out.
This was another episode of Jihadis Are Us. Please go to the Eyes of Allah website to see which package might suit you. Could your dream package be a flight into a building full of infidels? Or if your package is something more modest, a young English girl, an infidel, a kafir, yours for the evening, as long as you sign the waiver. Go to www.eyesofallah.com and find your future tomorrow.